Okay, boy howdy. I really don't know how I'm going to explain this one. I almost skipped this journal entry and kept this private, but I think this is really important that I record this one for myself. So, last night, yesterday was great. Yesterday was just a normal day. I was fairly pain free, got a lot of stuff done, had a good dinner, and I went to bed early. I went to bed 8:30 maybe, and I normally don't have any trouble falling asleep even if I'm not particularly tired. If I lay down in the darkness and relax my body, I will eventually fall asleep without any trouble. Not last night though. I laid down and out of nowhere I started getting angry and restless, and it was so strange and it was very puzzling to myself. I was thinking, why can't I let this one thing go? This is very unlike me. And I started thinking of people I could seek counsel from and just ways to let this emotion go, because like I said, it's really unlike me to hang on to something, to be angry about something. And I had a lot of negativity, and it was so strange. And it was almost like there was this thing happening, and then I was also outside of myself watching it happen. Like, what the fuck? Um, so I laid there and I was just so restless and I could not get to sleep. And I was tossing and turning, and then it occurred to me, wow, I wonder how long I've been laying here. It's got to be like 10 o'clock or even later by now. I must have been laying here for like 2 hours. And I looked at the clock. It was 1 a.m. It was 1:09 a.m. Wow. So I'd been laying there for a very long time. So I thought, wow, okay. Sometimes what I do if I can't sleep, well, especially if I have to wake up early and go do something, um, instead of panicking about not sleeping, I tell myself, well, at least I'm going to lay here and I'm going to rest my body and I'm going to rest my mind, whether I fall asleep or not. So I quiet my mind, I quiet my body, and I do the yoga exercise where you start from the bottom and go all the way to the top of your head, and you just relax every joint, every muscle in your body. And I focus on the rest that my physical body is getting. And usually that works, and I will eventually fall asleep. So I did that, and then I noticed um, there was really loud rainstorm outside. It was one of those ones that are like, damn, that's kind of scary. It's so fucking loud. It was beating against the glass window and the sliding glass door, and it was crazy wind, crazy rain. And I thought, wow, that's so strange because it was such a clear day today. And um, then I heard this, you know, that sound and sensation if you're driving your car or if you're in a car and one of the windows gets cracked but all of the other windows are not, and it creates a pressure difference, and it goes whoa, 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 and it sounds awful and it feels awful in your ears. That happened, and it was really terrible in my ears. And then I heard someone's voice. It sounded like somebody, uh, like an audiobook voice. And it said something about turning the pages. And it was whoa, 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 whoa. And then the voice was doing that, and I couldn't understand what it was. And then I very distinctly heard the voice being rewound and played backwards very quickly. And it was super fucking disturbing. And so I sat up and I shook my head and then it went away. And then um, I went back to, I rolled over and I must have fallen asleep because then I became conscious again and my lover was in bed with me. And I put my arms around them and I said, "Oh, I'm so happy that you're home early." And then I heard them say, "Oh, did I just feel the cat get on the bed?" And I say, "Oh, I don't think so. I didn't feel it." And then I feel their arm reach over and pat for the cat. And then I reach over and do the same thing. And I discover, oh, the cat is there. And I pet the cat. And then they move in a certain way. And the cat gets scared off and jumps off the bed. And I hear the thud thud of their feet. And then they rustle. And I go, "Oh, you made the cat go away, dang it." And then I come to and I realize that my lover is not there. And I was fully awake. Well, not fully awake, but I wasn't dreaming. I was having night terrors. Night terrors are a hypnopompic hallucination where um, you're awake, but you're not fully awake. There's part of your brain that is still projecting something. And that was the first time. So every time that I've had night terrors or a hypnopompic hallucination, in the last 2 years, I've been aware of them because I've had them all my life, but very rarely as an adult. And I go, okay, well, I know what is happening. So whatever I'm seeing, I'll reach out to touch, or if I'm interacting with it and I can't figure out if it's there or not, I'll reach for my cell phone and I'll take a picture. And if I can't see it in the picture, then it will immediately disappear because I become awake and I realize that it's not there. But I could never reach out and touch these things. This was wild because I reached out and put my arm around my lover and I felt the temperature of their skin, the solidness of their body. And I reached over and I pet my cat and it felt completely solid and real. And so I never suspected that it was a hallucination until I fully woke up and realized nothing and nobody was there. And then I was like, I'm trying to remember what happened next. I think I just kind of shook it off and I went back to sleep. And then I heard the crazy storm again, and it woke me up. And and I heard the wah 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 and the something about turning pages, and then suddenly the voice started going backwards quickly, and it was terrifying actually, and I was momentarily paralyzed, and I was able to wake myself up because and then when I woke up I realized, wait a minute, it's not raining. Because the first time I realized it was raining, I sat up in the bed and all the curtains are drawn, and I just kind of looked at the windows with the curtains drawn. It was dark, and I was just like, "Oh wow, it is really storming." And wow, that voice thing, that was a really strange dream or something that I must have been happening, but my ears actually hurt, like as if I was in a car, really experiencing that pressure warbling of air. And that's when I got super freaked out. I knew that I had that night terror experience, and it didn't particularly freak me out because I just thought, okay, that was odd. And since I was so still really groggy from sleep, it didn't sink into me how particularly odd it was that it was solid, and it was tangible, it was touchable. I spoke to it. I touched it and felt it. Oh, um, but I didn't realize how strange that was until waking up just now. Um, and then that warbling thing happened a third time, and it was with the crazy storm. And um, I let myself just observe it for a moment, and then the rest of me woke up, and I was able to sit up, and there was a really heavy, I don't want to say presence, because I don't really believe in that stuff. It makes perfect sense that all of those things are all projections of the mind, and even like near death experiences, it's like an oxygen deprived brain fizzling out and coming up with weird things that has been scientifically shown. So for a lack of a better way to explain things, after I came fully conscious after that last pressure warbling in my ears, god damn, it felt fucking terrible. um and I was really trying to listen to what he was saying, and it was something about rewinding the pages backwards, and then the words became faster, and they were being rewound backwards, and because of the rewinding and the whoa, 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 I couldn't understand any other words. So I sat up and then took in the fact that it was completely quiet, a completely quiet night. Oh man, there goes my voice again. Oh. Um, and I try to just take stock of other sensations and just what was going on, and I felt pretty calm. I didn't feel scared because I have a pretty solid explanation for this stuff happening, even though this was the most intense one. Oh, and I want to add, this was the first time I've ever had an auditory hallucination. So I definitely had to fight some panic and fear, experiencing that for the first time. And I felt like there was parts of the room that were darker than the darkness, and I keep my room very dark. Excuse me, I got the hiccups now. I keep my room very dark when I sleep, because if there's any crack or slit of light, it seems to keep me up. And so in a pitch black room, there were parts like here and here, in like these long, strange pointed triangles that were just extra dark and like heavy, and maybe even like crackling. I can't properly explain this because it's not something that I've ever experienced, and I've never heard anybody else explain it, so I don't really have the right words for it. And I just observed it, and I figured it would just go away as I woke up. But it wasn't going away, and the longer that I observed it, the more I got uneasy, and I started feeling some anxiety, and I thought, okay, why isn't this hallucination going away? Am I just still not fully conscious? What the fuck is happening? So I decided to, I was also very, very heavy, and it was really hard to keep my eyes open. And I was like, oh man, I should get up and fully wake myself up, because that will surely make this go away. But at the same time, I finally got sleepy. I really don't want to, but because I knew the only way out of this experience was to wake myself up 100%. I forced myself to get up, get water, and get my phone charger so I could plug in my phone and play some binaural beats with like the 528 frequency or the 9, some helpful positive frequency. I got the chills. I don't think it's because it's cold. I think this just telling the story is giving me the chills. So I get up, I'm fully awake. I see the cats in the living room. They're cuddled in their box, and it's obvious they haven't moved in a while. And got my phone charger, plugged it in, started some music, and I got back in my bed, and that presence was still there. And so I did what I would have done when I was a little kid. I went like this: stop. And I just looked around, and I felt very solid in my conviction. I don't know what I was talking to or about. When I was a little kid, I might have been, all religious about it or thought I was talking to monsters or demons. But my brain didn't really get that far. I was just kind of talking to the sensation and to the feeling without any particular thought or definition or judgment about what exactly it was. And I stopped like that for a little while, several moments, and then I went like that again, and I said stop several times. And then to ease, to like change the atmosphere, I said, I got the idea, well, perhaps if I say love several times, that will make me feel like and think about the definition of love and the sensation of love, and that will balance out the feelings. And even though, like I said, I wasn't particularly like, there's a bad entity there's a thing and it's trying to possess me, I'm being psychically attacked. None of that. I was just like, weird dark triangles and misplaced anxiety. Stop. Love. Love is warm. Love is happy. Love is peaceful and calm, and all of the opposite things that anxiety is. So I just said, stop, telling all these other things to stop. I felt like I was almost programming my brain rather than telling some entity to go away. And then I said love, just to kind of set the mood. That seemed to work. I felt very sure that it was going to work, and it did. And then what happened next was even stranger. I fell into this dream where I was driving this car at night through very windy roads. They're known as the Carver Curves over here. And I couldn't control the car because I was intoxicated, I think. And I didn't understand why my body was intoxicated, and my eyes were nearly swollen shut. And it was really scary because I kept almost passing out. And I thought, I'm going to crash the car and die. And I didn't intoxicate myself. What's going on? And every once in a while, I would suddenly be in the back seat behind the driver's seat instead of in the driver's seat. And I was trying to reach the steering wheel and reach the pedals. That was really crazy. And then I kept moving in and out of partial lucidity and losing it, partial lucidity and losing it. And um, and then I came to this point where you were leaving the country roads and you were about to get on the highway, and there were several options of which way to go. And I thought, no, 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 I can't get on the highway. I can't drive. And I thought, well, maybe if I can pull over and take a nap or something, even though it's like it's really not safe to do that. Um, Especially close to the highway. There's a lot of creepers that stop at truck stops or places where trucks pull over off the highway. Um, so I stop, and this police officer stops me too, and they're like, "Hey, like, are you okay? What's going on?" And or at least I think it's a police officer. I'm trying to remember. This dream was so strange, and it felt different than any other dream I've ever had. And as you can tell, I've had a lot of fucking dreams. I record a lot of dreams. And then I guess this other car pulls over, and it's I see this woman talking, and she's pulled over to check on me too, because she can tell that it's a female driver, and she could tell that I'm not doing so good, and she pulls over kind of at the same time. And then I realized, I was like, is that you? And it ends up being my sister. And she doesn't recognize me at first because my face is all swollen. And I keep seeing my face as if this dream is from an outside perspective at first. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I'm gonna drive you home." So she gets in the passenger side, and I scoot over to the. I mean, she gets in the driver's side, and I scoot over in the passenger side. And then all of a sudden, we're driving towards this beautiful mountain with all of these like red fern like trees. And it's a beautiful scene, and it's bringing me a lot of um, anti-anxiety and soothing feelings. I'm really distraught in this dream, and I'm saying, "Jay, I'm like half awake and I keep waking up and you're still there, and I'm having hallucinations, and can we just drive to the mountain and go visit mom and dad?" And she's like, "Don't worry, I'm taking you somewhere." And we're headed straight toward the mountain, and then we take a sharp right, and we're heading east of the mountain and headed towards this like we're in the valley, and there's like a couple of trailer places for RVs, and there's a couple of houses with horse ranches. And so we pull into this little neighborhood. It's not really a neighborhood. There's just two or three houses close together. And then we get out, and then my sister isn't my sister anymore. She starts becoming very antagonistic, and she's fucking with me. And it's the weirdest thing. And I'm like, why are you doing this? And she does some pretty fucked up things, and I don't want to record. And when I watch this again for dream notes, I'm going to know what I was talking about, because it happened with my brother in my previous dream when he started messing with me too. And then so then we start fighting, and then I realize, I'm like, you are trying to cause me harm. And I'm wrestling with her, and sorry, I heard my goats. Okay, I guess they're okay. I gotta see if my goats are all right. Oh, oh, oh. Sorry to disturb. All right, they're fine. One of them is making kind of a distress noise. I really hate disrupting this recording, but We have coyotes, and Chivo meat is pretty tasty. Okay. Come here, Blue. This is my friend Bluto. I love him very much. Okay, so I start wrestling with her, and my sister's pretty small. I mean, she's a bit smaller than I am, and I'm pretty into lifting weights and whatnot, and I know pretty confidently, either in waking life or in a dream, if I really wanted to, I could pretty sure I could whoop her, even though she takes a keto. So that goes on, and I pin her pretty hard, and I got her arm and her leg in a position where if I move or pull back slightly, it's going to cause the joint a lot of distress. And I do so, and we're talking a lot, and then she turns into a piece of wood, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to destroy this piece of wood. And from then on, everything in the dream starts twisting and being very fucking strange. And it turns into this really, really strange Wizard of Oz like story from here on out. And I even realized that I'm like, this is strangely like the Wizard of Oz, and there's all these similarities of the Wizard of Oz story. And I also realize at the same time, this dream is playing out every single trauma I've ever had, because my sister starts talking and reenacting traumas from my childhood that she had nothing to do with, but I recognize it, and it's so strange. And that's when I realized that's when she turned herself into a piece of aspen wood. And the neighbor next door has like axes and a sawmill, and I go over to him, and he's like, he talks about me finally realizing what this dream was, and he's willing to help me and be a helpful dream character, but he's not necessarily a good guy, and he keeps morphing into these really fucked up things. Like, he goes to high five me for like turning the witch into wood so I could then turn her into sawdust and get rid of this, and then and like get rid of my trauma around this certain issue. And he goes to high five me, and I look at his hand, and his hand, instead of a hand, it's like this weird foot hand with really creepy, really short black toenails, and it's gut-wrenching, really. And I go, nope, not going to acknowledge this. I'm not going to take this in. And so I look away, and I think, you're not going to cause me to lose my lucidity. And he just looks at me blankly. And by now, if you've ever seen The Nightmare Before Christmas, he looks like, there's this one character that's got an axe in his head. He looks like a hillbilly. He's just wearing overalls. He's bald and has an axe in his head. That's what this guy looks like. And so I put the log on the sawmill. And first I hack it, and I hack it, and I hack it to make sure it's dead. And then I put it on the sawmill, and I turn it into sawdust. And it's so strange. And I went through this one childhood trauma, and the idea was I was defeating this childhood trauma because she had brought it up. She'd made me go through it again. She'd made me feel it. She made me, and then I became lucid, and I talked about it, and I confronted it, and I told it no, and I told it it wouldn't have power or take any of my energy. And that's when she turned into the piece of wood. And then I was walking down the lane because I no longer had a car, and there was a row of these aspen trees, and they started moving and talking. And there was, I think, 5 of them, and each one was talking about a different incident in my life. And I thought, oh, fuck no. And I got an axe and I started chopping them down. And it was really hard to chop them. It felt like chopping a tree in real life. The axe was heavy. I felt the reverberation of every impact of the axe against the tree. And there was a lot going on and a lot of sensation in this dream that I can't explain. It's something I've never felt before. uh Seeing was a strain, and there was this weird, like, looking through some kind of round glass lens. It was, I don't know, this was a very weird dream. And I was 100% lucid, and I tried to wake myself up and I couldn't. That was also really strange, but I was also very interested in completing this Wizard of Oz story. And the path I was walking down was very similar to that classic yellow brick road. And I eventually, I'm not going to talk about what traumas those were, but I cut down all 5 of the trees and they were gone, and I felt like I had defeated those traumas. And then there were some more characters that I encountered that I don't want to talk about publicly. And although this is a pretty private dream journal that nobody watches and I don't promote, in case it ever does become public, it's just not something that I want to share. So I encounter some neighbors and I deal with them, and I deal with that trauma, and then it moves on to a strip club. And I was working there, and I've had some work related traumas, and that's what this was all about. This place, and it was a place that I wanted to work at. Seemed like a great place. There were some aggressive coworkers, but they seemed fairly decent if you stood your ground and you wouldn't let them bully you, which is true for strip clubs. So I had to work through some workplace traumas, and I almost lost my lucidity while I was there because I was like, oh, it's time to go to work. Duh. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm still in this weird Wizard of Oz dream, and this dream represents my work trauma and my performance trauma. Whoa. And this is a chance to work through that trauma and possibly let go of some PTSD that I have around work situations from 10 plus years ago, just as the dream scenes before. And so I end up working through them. I stand my ground where I need to stand my ground. I do the things that I need to do that, like, I wish that I would have done during the traumatizing situations. I confront a boss. I tell him to fuck off in no uncertain terms. And I go about my own business in my own way. And then I eventually wake up. But that doesn't seem like a nutshell because this video is now 35 minutes long. I know I'm leaving out a lot of personal detail from this dream and a lot of dream scenes and gory details of the dream and of my own personal story. This dream was intense. The night terrors were intense. And I'm I'm actually canceling all of my appointments except for my massage later this afternoon because I need to go out to the forest. I'm going to go run around in the forest naked and have some grounding time to ground myself and feel the earth beneath my feet, my bare feet, and feel the wind on my skin, on my body, and get some exchange some microbes with the earth and ground myself the rest of the way because I still feel like I am not all there. I feel like there's a part of me that's still up in the air or in the dream world. So I'm gonna get my flute. That's what I'll do. I'm gonna get my flute. I don't know if I should fast or if I should eat. Maybe I should do both. I think what I'll do is I'm gonna take some activated charcoal right now, and then I'm gonna fast for a few hours. Let the charcoal do its thing. It's best not to take charcoal with food or with vitamins because it's just gonna soak all the vitamins and nutrients and flush them out. So I'm gonna take the activated charcoal, fast for 2 to 4 hours out in the forest, and then I'm gonna come home and eat to help myself ground. Whoa. I have a lot to think about. A whole lot to think about. I feel really strong. Usually after an experience like this, I'd feel really shaken up, but I feel like I took a lot of control over things that I've never had control over. I feel very calm. I don't feel a speck of anxiety, and I'm quite interested in the experiences I had, even that sleep paralysis with the auditory hallucination. Although I don't want that to happen again because that might mean that I'm having some mental health issues. That might mean I'm having some physical health issues or sleep issues or some kind of issue that I'm not sleeping right, and that's what's causing me to half wake up and have this issue. Or it could be, like I said before, a mental health issue. So although I don't want that to happen again because of those two very strong reasons, at the same time I'm very interested in what happened, and if it happened again, it would be very interesting to observe it again so I could take more notes and just observe more detail and try to figure out if that voice can be slowed down or if I could hear more words of what it said or even talk to it, or I don't know. Also, this is the very first time in my adult life that I've seriously questioned my atheism. I still feel pretty solid about it, but that makes me go, whoa, what if? What if there are things? I don't know. I don't know. It's probably all in my head though. If you've had any experiences like this, I always say that I'd be fascinated to hear about your dream experiences, but if you've had hypnopompic hallucinations, night terrors, auditory hallucinations, I would be especially interested to hear about them. You would have to at least leave a comment and tell me that you're going to leave me a message about those things if you would rather keep it private, because I do not check my messages on here. There's too many fucking weirdos. Yeah, so if you are going to send me a message, you're going to have to give me a heads up to check my messages specifically for your message. Or if you're feeling open, feel free to just comment your experience so maybe other people can relate to it. Yeah. Whoa. All right. I'm going to go get my ass out in the forest. See ya.